The phone on my kitchen table wouldn't stop vibrating, sliding a fraction of an inch across the polished wood with every buzz. 47 missed calls on Monday. 63 by Wednesday afternoon. By the time Friday morning rolled around, the number on the screen had climbed to 103. Each muted vibration sent a small, quiet wave of satisfaction through my chest. I sat there in my new apartment, a warm mug of black coffee cradled in my hands, watching the digital skyline of my career shift. From this distance, I could almost see the infrastructure of Vertex Systems, my former employer buckling under its own weight. 5 days earlier, I had walked out of their glass headquarters with nothing but a single cardboard box containing my personal belongings and a calm, relaxed smile that seemed to deeply unnerve everyone who saw it. My manager, Bradley Miller, had just stood before the entire team and announced the position of Principal Systems Architect, the very promotion I had been working toward for 3 long years, was being handed to someone else. Not just any engineer, but Julian Frost, the undisputed office favorite. Julian was a man who could not debug a basic memory leak if his life depended on it, but he possessed an uncanny ability to charm his way into any executive meeting and take credit for the quiet labor of others. I had not argued. I had not made a scene. Instead, I had stood up, congratulated Julian with genuine warmth in my voice, and shook his hand. I had even smiled at Bradley, thanking him for the opportunity to be considered. Then, I had returned to my cubicle, quietly disabled the custom automation scripts I had written over the years to keep their fragile servers running, left my final reports completely empty of critical context, and submitted my resignation effective immediately. Nobody saw it coming, and certainly, nobody understood the sheer scale of what they had just lost. Before the full weight of this story unfolds, there is a piece of context worth sharing. I have always believed that standing up for your worth does not require burning bridges in a screaming match, nor does it require sacrificing your personal integrity. It requires a calm, calculated understanding of your own value. My name is Gerald Thornton, though most people in the industry call me Jerry. At 54 years old, I had spent the last 6 years of my life at Vertex Systems, climbing the ranks from a senior database administrator to the lead systems architect, who essentially held the entire back-end platform, together with custom code, architectural scaffolding, and a relentless consumption of midnight oil. I was not raised in the cutthroat culture of tech. My parents, George and Martha Thornton, ran a small, dusty hardware store in a quiet corner of Ohio. It was the kind of place where they knew every single customer by name, where they kept track of who had lost a job or whose kids were sick. I grew up watching my father spend 2 hours fixing a neighbor's lawnmower for free because her husband had recently passed away, and my mother would quietly slip extra copper fittings or batteries into the bags of families who were clearly struggling to make ends meet. They never accumulated much wealth, but they built a legacy of respect and community. That upbringing gave me a perspective that many of my younger colleagues in the technology sector seemed to completely lack. I learned to see people as human beings first and resources second. I understood what it meant to struggle. I understood what it meant to work twice as hard for half the recognition, and most importantly, I knew exactly when someone was trying to take advantage of my good nature. Bradley Miller was doing exactly that, and he had finally pushed me too far. The morning Bradley announced, Julian's promotion started like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the office at 7:30, a full hour before the rest of the engineering team, to check on the database query logs and ensure the overnight batch processes had completed without error. They had, of course. They always did when I was the one monitoring them. Vertex Systems was a mid-sized software company that provided enterprise customer relationship management solutions to about 800 corporate clients. Our platform was not flashy, but it was highly critical. Hospitals relied on it to track patient records, regional banks used it to manage daily transactions, and municipal governments used it to coordinate emergency services. For our clients, system downtime was not just a minor inconvenience. It could carry severe real-world consequences. That high level of reliability was almost entirely my doing, though you would never have guessed it from the corporate directory or the quarterly newsletters. I had personally designed the current server architecture 3 years ago when the legacy system began buckling under the weight of new customer acquisitions. I had written the active monitoring tools that detected database deadlocks before they could cascade into complete outages. I had created the automated failover scripts that could restore running services in less than 2 minutes instead of several hours. Beyond that, I had personally trained every junior developer who joined our team, teaching them the importance of clean code and rigorous code reviews. My annual performance reviews were always labeled as exceptional. Bradley told me time and time again that I was the irreplaceable backbone of the technical department, but when it came to promotions, there was always some structural reason to wait. Next quarter, next fiscal year, when the big database migration wrapped up, or when the annual budget was more settled. It was 3 years of next time, and I had foolishly believed him. Then, Julian Frost joined the company 18 months ago. Julian was, objectively speaking, a decent mid-level developer. He could write functional code, he understood the basics of our tech stack, and he did not create active disasters. But he was not exceptional. He was not someone who could see 3 steps ahead, nor could he diagnose a complex database bottleneck by sheer instinct. What Julian excelled at was corporate visibility. He volunteered for every social committee, spoke up in every meeting even when he had nothing of substance to contribute, played golf with Bradley on Saturdays, and remembered everyone's birthdays. He brought expensive pastries to the office every Friday morning. I did not resent him for it. Navigating office politics was a skill like any other, and Julian had mastered it. What I did resent was the management assumption that visibility equaled competence and that social charm was a substitute for actual technical capability. 6 months ago, Bradley created the senior systems architect position. He pulled me into his office after the announcement, clapped me on the shoulder, and said, "Jerry, this role has your name written all over it. Just draft a comprehensive roadmap for our third-quarter infrastructure upgrade, and we will make it official." I spent the next 4 months designing a complete overhaul of our deployment pipeline, incorporating advanced containerization, modern orchestration, and zero-downtime deployments. I prototyped the entire system on my own personal laptop, documented every architectural decision, created extensive training materials for the team, and presented a plan that would save the company roughly $300,000 annually in cloud operational costs. Bradley loved it. The Chief Technology Officer loved it. And the presentation to the executive board went flawlessly. "This is exactly the strategic vision we need," Bradley had told me afterward. "Let me formalize this with human resources, and we should have the official announcement by the end of the month." That was 6 weeks ago. This particular Tuesday morning, Bradley called an unexpected all-hands team meeting at 9 in the morning. I grabbed my coffee and joined the 23 other members of the engineering team in the main conference room. Bradley stood at the whiteboard, practically vibrating with excitement. "Team, I have some incredible news to share," he began. "As you know, we have been looking for a senior systems architect to lead our technical strategy into the future. After careful consideration, I am thrilled to announce that Julian Frost will be stepping into that role." The words hit me like a bucket of freezing water. Julian looked genuinely surprised, though whether it was acting or actual ignorance, I did not know. He stood up to polite applause, shook Bradley's hand, and delivered a short practice speech about how honored he was and how much he looked forward to collaborating with everyone. I clapped along with the rest of the room, keeping my expression pleasant and professional. Inside my mind, however, something crystallized into absolute, cold clarity. The illusion of my loyalty was finally shattered. After the meeting dispersed, Bradley caught my elbow. "Jerry, do you have a minute?" We stepped into his office, and he closed the door behind us, gesturing for me to sit. "I know you were hoping for that position," he said, looking down at his desk rather than meeting my eyes. "And I want you to know that this decision does not reflect on your technical abilities at all. You are absolutely phenomenal at what you do." "Thank you," I replied evenly. "The thing is," Bradley continued, "the senior architect role requires someone who can interface with high-level stakeholders, manage up to executive leadership, and represent the engineering team in strategic business sessions. Julian has really shown incredible strength in those areas. He has the soft skills that resonate with our clients. Soft skills, that was the explanation. That was what my 6 years of dedicated service, my midnight oil, my comprehensive documentation, and my complete overhaul of their systems had been cast aside. I completely understand, I said, and I meant it. I understood the situation perfectly. I am so glad you are being professional about this, Bradley said, a visible wave of relief washing over his face. The truth is, Jerry, we need you right where you are. You are so good at the nuts and bolts, at keeping the servers humming. Julian will handle the strategic vision, but we absolutely need your execution expertise. It was a classic corporate translation. Julian would take the credit and the massive salary increase, while I would continue to do the actual, heavy technical work under my old title and my old pay rate. That makes sense, I said. Bradley beamed. I knew you would get it. You are a true team player, Jerry. I stood up, shook his hand, and walked back to my desk. For 20 minutes, I sat at my workstation and stared at my dual monitors without really seeing the lines of code. My mind was extraordinarily calm. There was no anger, no sadness, and no feeling of betrayal. There was only calculation. I logged into my bank account. I had been saving aggressively for years, living well below my means. Between my savings and conservative investments, I had roughly 14 months of living expenses covered. More if I tightened my belt. I checked my email. 3 different recruiters had reached out to me in the past month alone. My LinkedIn profile, which I rarely touched, still received weekly inquiries from major firms. The job market for someone with my specific technical background was exceptionally strong. I opened a private text file and began to catalog exactly what I did at Vertex Systems that nobody else on the team knew how to do. The list grew incredibly long. The list of my unwritten contributions was staggering. I had built the active monitoring scripts that caught database deadlocks before they could cascade into complete systems outages. I had fine-tuned the load balancing algorithms that distributed traffic during peak hours, and I had designed the automated failover routines that switched to backup databases the moment the primary servers faltered. I had also created the custom caching layer that kept database response times under 200 milliseconds. None of this was in my official job description, and none of it was documented beyond my private engineering notebook. The code was commented, but understanding why I had made specific architectural choices required context that existed only in my head. Julian did not even know these scripts existed, and Bradley only knew I had automated some tasks without understanding the scope. If I walked away, it would only be a matter of time before the fragile infrastructure collapsed. I opened a fresh text document and composed my resignation letter. It was simple, polite, and effective immediately. Under my employment contract, I forfeited 2 weeks of salary in exchange for resigning without notice, a clause I had confirmed with Human Resources earlier that morning. Then, I began to disable my safety nets. I did not delete anything, as that would be database sabotage and potentially illegal. Instead, I disabled the automated cron jobs that ran my monitoring scripts. The files remained in the repository, but they would no longer execute. I reverted the database load balancing configurations to their default settings, returning the entire infrastructure to the fragile state it had been in 3 years ago. I moved my roadmap and upgrade documentation off the corporate drive and onto my personal machine. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, the work was finished. The infrastructure was functional, but completely stripped of its safety margins. I printed my resignation letter, walked to Bradley's office, and handed it to him. His eyes scanned the document, and his face shifted from confusion to panic. Effective immediately, Jerry. Why are you leaving? Is it the promotion? Because we can discuss a raise or a new title. I appreciate the offer, Bradley, but my decision is final. I will pack my desk and leave, I replied. You cannot just leave us without notice, he stammered. What about the database migration? We need at least a 2-week standard notice. I am forfeiting my salary for those 2 weeks which my contract permits, I said. Bradley's face flushed with anger. This is incredibly unprofessional after everything we have done for you. I almost laughed. I had given Vertex Systems 6 years of exceptional service, and I was leaving within my legal rights. I walked back to my desk. Packing my belongings took less than 30 minutes. I placed my books an Ohio coffee mug from my parents with a chipped handle, and a small succulent that had sat on my desk for 4 years into a box. As I walked toward the elevator at 2:15 on Tuesday afternoon, Julian approached me. "Jerry, I just heard. I want you to know I didn't ask for the promotion. I didn't know you were up for it." I believed him. He was not malicious, just oblivious. "Congratulations, Julian. The code is in the repository." "Good luck," I said, and stepped into the elevator. The lobby of the building was quiet, the glass doors letting in the warm afternoon sunlight. I walked out to my car, loaded my cardboard box into the back seat, and felt an immediate sense of relief wash over my shoulders. For the first time in 6 years, I did not have to worry about a server alarm going off in the middle of the night. The first call came on Wednesday morning. It was Bradley, and I let it go to voicemail. "Jerry, it's Brad. We need to talk." "Call me back," the message said. I deleted it. By Wednesday afternoon, I had received 3 more calls from Bradley, 2 from Evelyn Ward in Human Resources, and 1 from the Chief Technology Officer, Clarence Montgomery. I did not return a single one of them. On Thursday, the frequency of the calls increased. Bradley called 6 times, Evelyn called 4 times, and Clarence called twice. There was even a call from an unrecognized local number. I did not block them. I simply left my phone on silent, enjoying a long walk in the park and reading a book on database scalability in a quiet coffee shop. That afternoon, I went to a local cafe, updated my resume, and sent it to 3 selective recruiters. Within 2 hours, all 3 replied, and 1 immediately scheduled an interview for me on Monday morning at 10 o'clock at Aegis Technologies, the main competitor of Vertex Systems. By Friday morning, I woke up to find 47 notifications on my screen, consisting of missed calls, text messages, and urgent voicemails. I made some coffee and listened to a few. Bradley's voice sounded desperate. "Jerry, we are having technical difficulties. I am authorized to offer you a consulting rate of $200 an hour if you can help us troubleshoot. Please call me." $200 an hour was more than triple my previous rate. Clarence Montgomery's voicemail was blunt. "Jerry, this is Clarence. We have urgent systems issues. Call me back today." Evelyn's message requested an immediate knowledge transfer. I deleted them all and went for a run. On Friday evening, as I was cooking dinner, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my old desk number at Vertex Systems. Someone was sitting at my desk, trying to figure out how to keep the servers from crashing. I let it ring. Later that evening, as I was sitting down to eat, a text message arrived from Bradley. "Jerry, please. We have multiple database services down. Some of our major clients are experiencing critical system failures. I know you care about doing the right thing. Help us out here, and we can discuss whatever terms you want. Just name your price." I stared at the message. The servers were failing, but they were not failing because of sabotage. They were failing because the infrastructure had always been fragile and poorly managed, and I had spent the last 3 years invisibly masking that fragility. Now that the mask was removed, Bradley and his team were seeing the true, chaotic state of their systems. I did care about doing the right thing. That was why I had designed those automated tools in the first place, ensuring hospitals could access patient records and bank customers could execute transactions. But I also had a responsibility to do the right thing for myself. Vertex Systems had taken my loyalty for granted, and Bradley had passed me over for someone less competent simply because he was a better golfer. I did not respond. By the time I went to bed that night, the total count on my call log had reached exactly 103 missed calls. The next morning, Saturday, the phone rang at 10 o'clock. This time, the caller ID showed the name of Clarence Montgomery, the Chief Technology Officer. I decided it was time to answer. "Good morning, Clarence," I said calmly. "Jerry, thank you for picking up," Clarence replied. His voice was tightly controlled, but the exhaustion and stress were obvious. "I will get straight to the point. We had a series of critical database outages yesterday that affected 17 of our largest enterprise clients. Some of them are threatening legal action for breach of service-level agreements. We have spent the last 18 hours manually recovering data tables and rebooting servers. Our engineering team is in complete disarray." "I understand," I said. Clarence sighed. "Our database administrators tell me that the automated scripts that usually handle these deadlocks and recovery procedures are no longer running. They found files in the repository under a folder named Jerry Thornton Automation, but they cannot get them to execute, and they are afraid of breaking the database further. Jerry, did you sabotage our database systems? No, Clarence. Sabotage is illegal, and I am a professional. All core systems are operational and in the exact same state they were in 3 years ago, before I built those scripts. The custom monitoring and recovery tools were written entirely on my own personal laptop, during my weekends and evenings, using my own resources. Under Title 17, United States Code, Section 106, I retain the copyright to those custom scripts, as they were not developed as part of my assigned duties at Vertex Systems. I simply disabled the cron jobs that ran my personal intellectual property when I resigned. A long silence stretched over the line. When Clarence spoke again, his tone had shifted. I did not know that, Jerry. I will be honest with you. I did not realize the extent of what you were doing for this department. That is my failure as Chief Technology Officer. Bradley assured me that he had the technical operations fully under control, and I trusted his word. I did not look closely enough to see who was actually doing the heavy lifting. That was probably the closest I would ever get to an official apology from Vertex executive leadership. I appreciate you saying that, Clarence, I replied. We want you back, Jerry, Clarence said. We are prepared to offer you the senior systems architect role that was given to Julian, starting immediately. We will increase your previous base salary by 30% and include a substantial signing bonus to make up for this misunderstanding. I remained silent, letting the offer hang in the air. Clarence, sensing my hesitation, continued, We can do better. If you have other options, tell me. I have an interview scheduled for Monday morning for a principal architect position at another firm, I said. Clarence did not hesitate. We can match that title. We will create a principal systems architect position for you. We will increase your base salary by 40%. You will report directly to me, bypassing Bradley entirely. We are also reviewing Bradley's management of the department, and Julian will likely be transitioned to a project management role where his communication skills are better suited. We need stability, Jerry. You are the only one who knows how to provide it. It was a remarkable offer. A 40% raise, a principal title, and direct access to the Chief Technology Officer. A week ago, it would have been my dream outcome. But as I sat in my quiet apartment, I realized that this offer was born out of desperation, not appreciation. They did not value me. They simply did not want to deal with the inconvenience of their own failing infrastructure. I also reflected on the age discrimination I had experienced. At 54 years old, I was the oldest engineer on the team. By choosing a younger, charming favorite over an experienced developer, Bradley's decision potentially violated the Federal Age Discrimination in Employment Act, under 29 U.S. Code Section 621. I could have filed a formal complaint, but I preferred a clean break. I need some time to think about this, Clarence, I said. I understand, Jerry, but I need an answer by Monday morning. The clients are demanding a recovery plan, Clarence replied. I will let you know my decision on Monday, I said, and ended the call. On Sunday, I drove out to Ohio to have dinner with my parents at their house. My mother, Martha, made her signature pot roast, and my father, George, sat across from me in his usual flannel shirt. When I told them that I had resigned from Vertex Systems, my father nodded slowly. Good, he said immediately. That place never truly appreciated what you brought to the table. My mother agreed, noting that I had looked exhausted for years. I explained the situation to them, detailing the sudden interview on Monday and the counteroffer from Clarence Montgomery. What do you want to do, Jerry? My mother asked. That was the central question. The logical corporate choice was to return to Vertex Systems. The title of principal architect and a 40% raise was a massive victory. It was the exact vindication I had wanted. But I remembered what my father had told me when I was 16 years old, working my first job at a local grocery store where the manager kept scheduling me during hours I had explicitly stated I could not work. Jerry, my father had said, there is a fundamental difference between being needed and being valued. People will always need someone competent and reliable to do the work. But if they do not value you until you are already walking out the door, they do not really value you at all. They just do not want to be inconvenienced. The memory hit me with sudden force. Vertex Systems did not value me. They simply did not want the inconvenience of their own systems collapsing. I think I want to see what else is out there, I said. My father smiled. That is my boy. On Monday morning, I put on my best suit and drove to Aegis Technologies. The offices were bright, open, and filled with a calm, collaborative energy. I was interviewed by Diana Sinclair, the Vice President of Engineering, and Walter Brooks, the Director of Infrastructure. They had clearly prepared for our meeting. We have been trying to recruit someone of your caliber for months, Diana said. Your reputation in the industry is outstanding. The public uptime data for Vertex Systems shows they went from 94% availability to 99.7% during your 6 years there. I was surprised they had tracked that. We checked the public endpoints, Walter added with a smile. Taking a legacy platform to that level of stability is exceptional. The interview lasted for 2 hours, focusing on technical architecture, scalability, and engineering culture. It felt like a conversation among professional peers who respected each other. Toward the end of the meeting, Diana looked at me. We know you recently left Vertex, and we do not want to lose this opportunity. We are prepared to make you an offer today. She handed me a document. The offer was for the Principal Systems Architect position. The base salary was $190,000, with a 20% annual performance bonus target, substantial company equity, 4 weeks of paid vacation, and a hybrid schedule allowing 2 days of remote work. $190,000 was 58% more than I had been making at Vertex Systems, and the corporate culture was incomparably better. I told them I would make my decision by the end of the day. I sat in my car in the parking lot and dialed Clarence Montgomery's number. Jerry, have you made a decision? Clarence asked. Yes, Clarence. I appreciate the generous offer to return, but I am going to decline, I said. A long silence followed. May I ask why? We offered you everything you wanted, he said. You offered it because you had to, not because you wanted to, I explained. You only saw my value when the systems failed. I want to work somewhere that recognizes my contributions consistently. Clarence sighed. I understand. I cannot argue with that. I wish you the best, Jerry. Before I hung up, I made one final gesture. Clarence, my automation scripts are disabled, not deleted. They are in the repository under the name Jerry Thornton Automation. There is a simple README file. Any competent database engineer can figure them out with a few hours of study. You have my permission to use and modify them. I do not want the clients, the hospitals, or the banks to suffer because of Bradley's poor management. Clarence seemed taken aback. That is incredibly generous of you, Jerry. Thank you, and I am truly sorry for how we treated you. You deserved better. I did, I agreed, but I am finding it now. Goodbye. I ended the call and immediately phoned Diana Sinclair to accept the offer at Aegis Technologies. The transition was the best decision of my life. My first week at Aegis Technologies was a complete contrast to my years at Vertex. I was given the resources I needed, and my suggestions were welcomed. Within 4 months, as the department expanded, Diana Sinclair offered me the position of Director of Infrastructure. 2 years later, I was promoted to Vice President of Infrastructure, overseeing 43 engineers across 3 continents. When Aegis Technologies went public, the equity I had been granted allowed me to pay off my remaining debts and purchase a beautiful home. On the 2nd anniversary of my departure from Vertex, my engineering team threw me a surprise celebration. They had ordered a large cake with blue frosting that read, 2 years of not answering their calls. We laughed, and I gave a short speech. I told them that your value does not change based on whether people choose to recognize it. What changes is whether you are in an environment that allows that value to grow or one that suppresses it. I committed to ensuring that every engineer on my team felt valued, not just needed. The room erupted in applause. A few months later, I ran into Julian Frost at a national technology conference. He was no longer at Vertex Systems. After I left, the systems had struggled for months. Bradley Miller had been demoted and transferred, and Julian had realized he was not suited for technical management. He was now working in technical sales for a startup and doing very well. We shook hands and he apologized for the promotion. I smiled, shook his head, and told him there were no hard feelings. Walking away from Vertex was the catalyst that allowed my career to truly flourish. I never answered those 103 missed calls, and I never regretted it.